Hey, everybody, welcome back to another amazing episode of Fix Your BS, where BS stands for belief systems, also balance sheets and business systems. That's right. We took belief systems and business systems and balance sheets, and it all is important to your life and how you can build the best life possible. We are always searching the internet for the best guests that are successful in different areas. And the 5 pillars that we talk about are business, relationships, health, finances, and obviously belief. Today, we have an amazing guest, Rick Melero. Rick Melero is a real estate investor and micro banker. I found him on Instagram, which, as you know, you can click the link below. But Rick has some amazing stuff about short-term rentals, different micro banking strategies. He's the founder of His Capital. That's at his.capital. You can click that link as well. But I'm so excited to talk to him today because he's going to teach you a little bit about investing. He's also really great with all the other pillars. You know, he's an author, a speaker, a father, an investor, and has a free passive income web class on Instagram if you click his Instagram bio. So thanks, Rick, for being here. Founder of His Capital. Going to learn some stuff from him today.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here with you guys.
All right. So tell us a little bit of, stories of how you got where you are. I love talking about the history of, where you started to where you are, because we have listeners that are in so many parts of their journey, in their entrepreneurship journey, business journey, beginning, middle, and all of it. So tell us where you started and how you got to where you are right now.
Yeah, so actually, I've been in the industry now for over 20 years. To kind of give you the little summarized version, when I was actually, before I started my real estate days, I was actually a youth minister, and I was assisting my church and going on the mission field. In fact, that's where I really got this burning passion to make a difference. The only problem was, even though I was really happy with helping people, I was so broke I couldn't pay attention because I was living off donations, right? And so there was that balance. And so one day I realized that if I really wanted to increase in my ability to make a difference in the world, which I really felt was a calling in my life, that what I needed to do was to find the resources or the vehicle to be able to get me there. And so after doing a lot of research, I realized that real estate was one of the common denominators between all the wealthiest people on the planet. Whether they sold cars, whether they sold insurance, investments, at the end of the day, when you look at their net worth statements, real estate was a big part of all of them. And so that was something that really appealed to me. And so I made a decision that I would continue with the mission of making a difference, but that I would follow the real estate business model as an actual vehicle. Now, I did have an issue. I didn't have the money. I didn't have the knowledge. And obviously, there were a lot of trainers out there that were happy to teach me, but it cost $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, which, by the way, I would have happily paid if I had the money, right? But I didn't. And so, long story short, I was actually in Tampa at the time, and I found an ad. And this ad talked about some gentleman that was flipping houses who was looking to hire an acquisitions manager. So I went and applied. I did everything I could to sell this guy. I was really motivated. I literally was probably a little bit overzealous. And at the end of the interview, he said, "Man, I love you." And I really for sure thought this guy's going to hire me on the spot. And he says, "But I don't have the time to train you. And the issue is, even though you're good, I feel you're a potentially good candidate. The truth is, I don't have the time to teach you." And so he dismissed me. And so on my way out, as I was walking out, I thought, man, this is really what I thought. And my heart tells me I should have been here. So I said, you know what? I'm not going to take no for an answer. So I turned back around and I said, "Sir, actually, you can't. I refuse." And he's like, "What?" And I said, "In fact, I'm willing to work for free." And so I literally interned for 6 months and learned the real estate business by just sacrificing. So literally throughout the day, I worked for free. And at night, I had a small little job just to pay my bills so I could at least eat some ramen noodles and get through it. And so that was the beginning journey. Now, little did I know that just by constantly looking for ways to build systems, by constantly looking to surround myself with the right people, and by having a completely disciplined lifestyle that was just focused on constantly improving. I never imagined that the little guy that was wholesaling a property and giving it to the guy with the money would not only flip those homes, but would become the bank and begin to finance millions of dollars in projects. And so it's been an amazing ride, and it's really afforded me the opportunity to do my number one, right? Which is really to build my relationship with God and ultimately flow that out into the lives of people in the mission field in many parts of the world, and even here in the US as well.
Rick, that's awesome. And so much that you just put into that whole statement. And one of the things that jumped out at me is when you talk about belief, I also talk about faith a lot when we talk about belief. Very similar things. And when you made that decision to say, no, this is where I need to be, and I'm not going to take no for an answer. So many people miss opportunity because they don't do that. So two questions really. The first one is, how did you recognize that? And the second one is, how can someone else recognize it in their life where they're at, and know when they should push through something like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a great question. And the truth is, at least for me anyway, one of the biggest things that I have learned over the years is that I feel like God doesn't speak in yelling and fire and brimstone, if you will. It's usually the small whispers. And that's typically when I know. And the way that it's connected is twofold. Number one, I knew that I was supposed to be in that industry. And I really felt that in the way that all these things came together, it was truly my path. It was the path that I was supposed to go. Just too many things aligned for me to get to that moment. And so, but in that moment when I was being rejected, right, and I felt defeated, and I felt like, he's right. I don't have a clue what I'm doing. That's why I'm coming here. But what I remember as I walked out is that there was this small whisper that said, "You're going to quit that easy? Isn't this what you wanted to do?" And it almost was posed like a question. Are you going to quit? Are you going to? And then as I'm walking out, I realized my heart is literally pounding out of my chest. It's almost like I am being compelled to turn around. And some people say that's intuition, that they got this feeling in their stomach, right? And so for me, I recognize, no, that was the leading of the Spirit of God telling me, turn around and do what you were called to do. And so I had to respond. I had to respond by actually taking action and doing my best, or at the very least being willing to fail and look stupid for trying to pursue what I was really convicted about.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was a big piece.
It's interesting as we age that what you just said, be willing to fail and look stupid. And for whatever reason, as we become adults, we forget that as a child, everything you did was new. Everything you tried was new, and you were going to fail and look stupid, but you hadn't been told that yet. You hadn't learned that yet. You just did whatever you felt like doing, like you're saying, in your stomach, in your gut. You hadn't learned all the things that you couldn't do yet, if you will, or whatever you believe. Because what you believe is ultimately your reality. If you believe you can, you believe you can't, you're right.
You're right either way.
And so that's so hard for most people, though. When you talk about the gut feeling, or what I would say, that constant prayer where you're keeping your mind quiet so you can listen to those whispers, which is, I agree, how they show up. Do you have a system, a habit, anything that people could figure out how to get into that place where they can hear that inner voice, which you could call God, you could call the universe, you could call your gut instinct, whatever you want to call it? It's the same thing. Is there anything that you could, help somebody else out with, a tip, a trick, a habit, a strategy?
Sure. Well, the first thing is, how did I get to my belief system, right? That's one of the biggest things. So on my journey, I'm believe it or not, naturally a skeptic. I'm always expecting there to be something behind the lines. And so I really looked at a lot of different religions. I looked at a lot of pieces, and I studied and I did my research. I realized that even though I thought I was an atheist at the time, the more research I did, the more I realized that you have to have even more faith to be an atheist than to really connect the dots and see what God's doing in our lives. Creation itself really beholds glory. So after I finally realized that I was fully convinced that the evidence points to a creator, then the next step was, okay, which creator? And so that was the journey that took years. But what I've learned is ultimately I got to meet the God of the Bible, is what I tell people. And during that process, what I have learned is that if I really want to be successful in every area of my life, I need to make something a priority, and that is my time with God. What I always tell people as a habit is that when you are going to meet someone, let's say that you want to meet a client that could potentially finance your next venture that you're looking to expand, and he's got the resources and the wisdom to not only give you wisdom and direction on that business venture, but potentially the resources to invest. What I can assure you is this, is that you are going to make time, and it's going to be on your calendar, and you're probably going to be there 15, 20 minutes early, right? Because you can't miss this really important opportunity. So one of the habits that I've developed over the years is that I see God in the same way. I recognize that by myself, I can't do it. So every morning before I do anything else, I have my scheduled on my calendar an hour that I have called FaceTime. And I call it FaceTime before there was a FaceTime, by the way. So that FaceTime really comes down to me reading the Bible. I typically don't try to read Genesis to Revelation. I'm usually focused on just one chapter for 30 days straight. And why? Because I'm not here to read and finish a book. I'm here to consume it. I'm here to get it from here to my heart. And so in order to do that, I go through that process for 30 days. And in that habit, what I've developed is a journal, which has really changed my life. Part of that journaling process is I write down the promises that are in the Word of God that I'm standing on for my family, that I'm standing on for my business, my employees, my clients, and so on and so forth. And I do that because you mentioned something before, is as you believe it and as you start speaking it, it starts happening. So I write it down, I'll declare it, I'll thank God for it ahead of time. Then as I get my reading done, I start doing what I call an observation. I might find one Bible verse that today really stuck out to me that I've read over 50 times. I write it down. Then I actually put my observation down. When I'm done, I do what I call my application. So how can I put this to practice in my life? And once I'm done writing that, I'll just write a prayer and I'll pray that actual scripture into my life. And at the end, it's interesting you made a comment. I make the space and I literally write down, listen. And I will sit there for as long as it takes. And it's so interesting how many times in my journaling, when I get to the listening, either somebody will pop up, something is written. I'll tell you more about one of those moments in journaling where literally I had open heart surgery and God told me. It's incredible. But what I have found is that every time I journal something, and if I had somebody in mind and I reach out to them later, they're like, how did you know? How did you know that I was just crying out to God and I'm struggling? My husband left me, whatever happened, and I was needing encouragement, and you knew exactly when. And that's how I know it wasn't me, it's him, right? And so that has been a discipline that I've developed over the years. And it started 15, 20 minutes. Now, if I get at least an hour and a half in, I feel like I shorted myself, right? Because I love being in that position where I can truly meditate, get in the Word, listen, and then I can operate with confidence. And that's really what this is all about for me.
I love that you mentioned meditate. You know, so many times people think of that word meditate as like this foo-foo, woo-woo type of thing where you got to sit a certain way and you got to chant whatever. And really, to me, meditation is nothing more than silent prayer or focus. It's quieting your mind. And people don't realize this, but your mind and your soul are two different things. And your mind's trying to keep you alive. It's trying to help you survive. And your soul, you know, is really connected to God or the light, the energy, life source, or whatever you want to source energy, which, you know, I would call God, but it doesn't matter what you call it. It's the same thing. And if you quiet your mind, that soul or portion of you can start to become louder, and you can actually hear it, not by your ears, but hear it internally. Feel it would be a better way of saying that. A lot of people, it's so hard for them to get into that habit because, you know, it's not anything massive. You don't feel this massive immediate change, poof, you know, this big thing. How did you get into that habit? I mean, was there a time where you noticed, oh, this is different, this is interesting, or was there, you know, a moment in time where that showed up and you said, I got to keep doing this?
You know, when you're running a business and you're dealing with millions and millions of dollars of responsibility, that's a very heavy weight. When you're dealing with employees and you're dealing with all kinds of decisions. I mean, I used to joke and get home to my wife and she's like, what do you want to eat? I'm like, I am decisioned out. I can't make another decision because I've been dealing with decisions all day. You pick, feed me, that's all I care about. And so there's been times in my life where I just felt like I was completely spent. I was exhausted. And what I found is that if my mind wasn't stayed on him and on his promises and his word, then I would be susceptible to fear, anxiety, frustration, which caused a ripple effect, right? It impacted my performance, it impacted my relationships, and it impacted my business, right? So at the end of the day, as I was praying, I felt led one day to actually just journal it. And the reason why I journal is because it is a part of that meditation process for me. The actual Hebrew word is really interesting for the actual word meditate, which is actually to mutter. So you're actually muttering or praying in low voice the scriptures or whatever it is that you're meditating on. And so by actually giving your brain the ability to actually write it out, you're kind of freeing your mind to be in that moment. And what I find is that through that journey of meditation, right, as I'm in the scriptures, as I'm slowly kind of slowing down, because I have a purpose in the moment to write it, what happens is my brain isn't thinking about what happened yesterday. It's not thinking about what am I going to do later today or tomorrow. It's focused in this moment now. I'm able to breathe. I can literally hear the birds in the morning. I can literally hear the AC come on and off because I have a heightened sense of things because I am in this moment. And it is one of the best and most beautiful things you could do is when you can finally get to a place where you are literally still before the Lord and you're not in the past, you're not in the future, you're in that moment basking in it. And for me, it's just one of the most incredible things. And so I try to pursue that on a daily basis because it's what gives me the strength to continue throughout the day so that I'm not Rick-centered, I'm God-centered. And what I find when I do that, then I'm more impactful with other people around me. I'm more considerate, I'm more kind, I'm more generous, and I'm actually more hardworking, right? Because I feel like I'm doing something for something much greater than me. And it's not so self-centered where I'm focused on Rick, look at how great I am.
That's so great though, man. Like being present is so hard today with cell phones and with all these distractions. So many things that we can, you know, immediately turn to and be bouncing around. What I always recommend for people when I'm working with them, especially entrepreneur, business owner type people, because they get pulled into so many different directions, is having those moments. I have an alarm on my phone 3 times a day, in the morning, right at around lunch, and right towards the end of the day, where there's this just moment of quiet. And even me doing it right there, I'm like, that's nice. I think guys naturally do this. They're expected a lot of times to go out and provide, and that might be a controversial statement, but I don't care. That's what I believe, that they're they go out and they provide and whatever, and they naturally kind of do it when they get home. And if guys are listening to this, they'll know what I'm talking about. Where they, before they go in, they just sit in their car. A lot of times, turn off the music and just sit there. Maybe for 5 minutes, maybe for just a minute, but I find that that's a pretty common thing that a lot of guys that I've worked with have done, where they just sit for a moment. And that's really what it is. It's quieting, being present in that moment of, now, I wish I had done this earlier. I'm 41 now. I wish when I was younger and I would have switched from work mode to dad mode better. Because you walk in the door and it's your kids are there, and then there's also, well, how was your work? How was work today? And then now you're replaying the work day. And I wish I would have been able to take that moment and go, I'm in dad mode now. I was okay at it, but I wish I would have been more intentional. So intentionality becomes very, very important in the role of a CEO, entrepreneur, business type person. How do you relate to that intentionality and put that into play with all of this?
That's a great question. I was actually pulling on my phone because I have also scheduled intentionally times for me to, what I call it, breathe, right? Just take a moment, breathe, just calm down, right? And so I do that multiple times throughout the day. But it goes to what we're talking about. We're scheduling things right before they happen because we're trying to be proactive. And so part of being intentional is being proactive. And so from my perspective, I've seen the importance of being intentional has been so essential for me. And I can give you just a couple of very quick examples of how I've done it. So most guys, when we meet and we sit down, you have a coffee, you're having a conversation and you're new, one of the first questions that they ask is, so what do you do for a living? And so most of us guys, we literally define our identity around what we do, not who we are. And so one of the things that I learned through one of the processes is actually I wrote down my roles as a businessman, but also my role as a husband, my role as a father, my role as a mentor. And what's really interesting is my role as a man, when you are intentional, right? I listen to that at least twice a week. I've already recorded it. And so when I'm going to the gym, I play it. And the whole idea is to constantly be aware of it so that I can become more intentional subconsciously, right? So where I already am anticipating that if I want to be good at something, I need to work at it. You take a look at the best athletes in the world, what makes them amazing is that they were intentional about developing their skills, right? They're consistent, they're intentional, right? While other people are at home watching TV, they're running that extra 3 miles because they know that's the price they have to pay of discipline so that they don't pay the price and the pain of regret. So in the same way, I looked at my life and I said, look, I'm a businessman and I've done pretty good. I'm grateful for what I've done, but am I a good husband? Am I a good father? Am I a good mentor to those around me? And so in order to be able to accomplish that, that means that you have to be willing to be proactive and schedule things. So for me, what I've developed is a discipline on my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, it's not going to happen. But if it's on my calendar, then I've set aside a specific time with a purpose of something that I'm going to do. So I'll give you one, for instance, with my wife, right? So my wife and I actually schedule bi-weekly dates because it's on our calendar. We have an uninterrupted hour once a week that we sit down and just talk about nothing or anything and walk around and walk down the community if need be. But one of the things that we never fail to do is every quarter we have an actual marital checkup where we ask ourselves 6 key questions, rain or shine. And you will be amazed at how just being intentional in the beginning, that would sometimes lead to an argument because I was listening to respond, not listening to understand. But once I realized the purpose of that, then whenever she shared her heart with me, it allowed me to really connect with her. And so we then intentionally started building a relationship, and there was a major bond. In the same way, I carried that same intentionality with my kids. I take them on dates. I spend time with them. And in fact, one of my mentors once told me that when you come home, as you were talking earlier, he said, breathe before you walk in. And then he says, but then you come low. He's like, all day you've been running high, working your business, but your kids they're on the low side. So if you want to really switch in your mind and you want to toggle, if you will, come low and realize that these are your kids. This is why you worked all day, right? So come low and connect with them. And man, what a difference it's made on my life that I can come home, come low, get on my knees and play with them and give them a big hug, listen to what they were doing. And it's made such a massive impact on my life. I can't believe that it took so many years to figure this out.
Yeah, it is funny how that works because I listened to a book, Outwitting the Devil, and it talks about like when you're in your early 40s as a man is generally when you start figuring things out, and you're like, I feel that way. I feel like I'm just now starting to figure some things out and can apply it to the next 20 years of my life. But there's always that the hard part for people is living with regret, living with the mistakes you've made in your past, and trying to live in the moment and be appreciative of those mistakes instead of allowing them to, affect you in a negative way. One of the things that I really practice a lot is gratitude and appreciation, which is, I say practice because it's so hard for me to stay there a lot of times, when things come at you and bad news or news that you don't like, I should say, hits you, you're like, oh, and there's this gut reaction where you want to react. And it's like, no, well, this is going to make me a better person. I'm going to learn something from this, and taking that moment. Do you find yourself that you take a moment, and the reason why I'm asking all these is because I think these are very important to becoming a successful, not just business person, but you want to be successful as in your relationships with your wife, your kids. You want to be successful in your business, obviously your financials, your faith, your belief, your health, all those things makes up a whole life, not just, hey, I made a lot of money. I met a guy that made a lot of money, and he was the loneliest guy I've ever met in my entire life. He went home to his lonely house and his lonely big old table and, didn't have anything. So anything outside of money. So, is there something that, some guidance you can give there?
Yeah, I mean, that all begins with redefining what success is. Again, most of us are trying to prove ourselves to someone. Most of us don't even know to who. And at the end of the day, we waste all this time and we're trying to impress the wrong people that didn't matter in the first place. And all the while neglecting the ones who cared about us from the beginning, right? And so for me, redefining success over the years has really been that when I look at the word success, I equate it to excellence. But when you connect those two, the actual meaning is thriving in balance with purpose. And so I think it's one of the biggest definitions that have changed my life because it redefined the way that I see success and the way that I see a standard of excellence. And that is that if I really want to measure my life, and in fact, I have an accountability group, we meet every Wednesday, and we have a tracking sheet, which is for our life balance, and we rate ourselves. And whoever doesn't do it by the time we get there owes everybody a coffee. So it just took 1 or 2 times, and $5 is no longer Starbucks, right? It's not $20 is what it is. So very quickly, everybody started doing it consistently. But the whole concept there is to become aware of the fact that, like you said, if your life is a wheel and you excel in one piece, but all these other areas are out of whack, how do you even move forward? You can't even roll, right? So for me, I would rather be less productive in one area and more balance in all the other areas of my life. And that's really when we talk about balance. From that point on, then you can start slowly but surely thriving and growing in those areas in a balanced way. But at the end of the day, if your why is not bigger than your how, you're never going to do it. And this is why you have to be purposeful. And that balance and purpose come together. And it's when you have something so much bigger than yourself that you want to wake up. You know, a lot of people say I'm motivated, but motivating is like soap. You take a shower, but you got to do that every day, right? Inspiration comes from understanding your purpose, and it comes from within. And it's something that gets you excited about getting up each day. And so for me, it was just the redefining of what I thought success was and what excellence looks like. And so now I realize that I'm on a journey. I'm never going to get there. But every month when I look back, I tell my wife, have I become a better man and a better husband for you? Because that's my goal. And that's really what matters to me now.
That's awesome. That's, jumping into those hard conversations with your spouse is a lot of times scary. You're worried about the results. You're maybe a little, oh, concerned about what they might, how they might react, or maybe you're a little embarrassed about something that don't want to share or something. But that is always a very, very tough one. When you said the word inspired, it reminded me something I like to talk about a lot, which is inspired really comes from the phrase in spirit, where in that spirit, which is in the Christian world, is more of that. I'm in constant prayer, I'm inspired, I'm in spirit, I'm inspirational, because that's your true you are aligned with who you really are, and therefore your best you comes out. And I think the opposite occurs when people are experiencing frustration and stress and all these negative emotions. I think they're just at odds with who they really are. And maybe they don't know who they really are, or maybe they're living somebody else's life. And I just love that, 20 years ago, you said, you know what? I know who I am. I know what I want to do. I'm doing this no matter what. And I'm going to pay the price to do it, which in your case was I'll work for free for a period of time. But, what was that decision worth to you, 20 years later? What was that decision? I mean, you could put it into financial terms. It's probably worth multiple millions, since you've done over $500 million in projects completed. Congratulations on that. But, how much do you think that was worth, that one decision that you said, I'm going to pay the price for a period of time?
I mean, it's it's made my entire life. But if I can put it into like a picture, I look back at when I was in the mission field and I had no resources and I had very little to give. And I look back at now the culture of my company and our team. And I think about the fact that in fact, I'm going June to Ukraine again, but I was there when the war started, and looking at the children's faces who we were literally ripping out of places that are being attacked live and taking them to a safe haven. To me, I just look at those lives and say, if I hadn't paid the price, would these children still be here today? And so for me, it just shifted, because now for me, every dollar has a face on it, right? And so every part of my journey has a potential to serve Rick, or a potential to live a purpose that is so much more and so much greater than me, that's more fulfilling. And so when you ask that question, looking back, what I see is all these faces of these children that I've met, of these parents that were struggling, of these families that were dealing with abuse. And I've had the privilege and honor to be there with them in the field, loving on them, providing them food and resources, having my family join in packing 300,000 meals that are being shipped off to Uganda, and being in Uganda myself. To me, that is more rewarding than any dollars that could ever come in. And so when I look back, I say, thank you, young Rick, for being willing to fail forward and not compromising when it got hard, because it was very hard. Life's not easy, but definitely you can do all things when you have the right source. And so for me, as you say that, my heart is moved because I know that there's even more to come, right? I know there's many more people that were not born with the resources. They weren't born in a country that gave you the ability to just say, I'm going to do what it takes, and you can do it. They're in a place that they're being attacked, or you're dealing with someone that doesn't have the resources, right? So I get to be that guy that gets to go out there and humbly connect with these people from all over the world, and even people that I've met here that are dealing with PTSD or struggling with something, to just be that light in that darkness for them.
That's man, that's so well put. And everybody's dealing with something. I think in our social media world, there's so much, where people can just assume that you're living a perfect life. And you can look through somebody's Instagram. You look through my Instagram, it looks pretty awesome. My life looks pretty sweet. There's problems. There's business problems, there's money problems, there's relationship problems, there's always problems. I just have a very positive outlook, just like you, and I really love that. Rick, any final thoughts that you'd like to say? I mean, that was a pretty great one right there, but any final thoughts while we close this interview out?
Yeah, I'm just humbled by you, first of all. So thank you so much for just being so authentic and wanting to put something out there for people that is more than just a filter like we see on Instagram, this pretty life. I think our life is beautiful. Even the struggles are beautiful. Even the scar on my chest from open heart surgery is beautiful because it tells the story of my life. It tells the moments that God came through for me. And so what I would tell people is stop trying to run away from pain. And the truth is, don't waste the pain. Use it to fuel your purpose, to live a life that is worth living. And remember that when you run your business or you do your job, whatever it is that you're pursuing in career, what you should be thinking about is that next generation, right? So I'm not doing this for Rick. I'm doing it because my kids, I tell them every day, you're standing on daddy's shoulders. That's what daddy's working for, right? And so that you can become a branch, and then your kids will be on your shoulders. We have to think bigger, and we have to think longer, because our life is but a breath. The only thing that we're taking with us is literally, there's nothing that we're going to take physically with us when we're gone, right? And so the only thing that we're leaving behind is the legacy that we leave in the people that we were in contact with. And that really should be a part of how we cement our direction, our focus in life and business and our relationships, because that's what will last. And that's what I want to be a part of, something that will last even long after I'm gone.
I'm the same way, man. Well said. I really appreciate you being here for sure. And really great information for people. They can put these things into their life, and you're a very amazing inspiration to the people that listen to this program. So everybody, you need to check out Rick. He's on Instagram, Rick Melero. Melero, if I could talk, Rick RickMelero. You can click it in the bio down here as well, the description of this video. He's done 500 million projects completed. He's an author, speaker, father, investor, and has a free passive income web class where you can take that course on Instagram. Great guy, great Christian dude, and some amazing information that he, gave us today. So thanks, Rick, for being here. Founder of His Capital, and has been doing it for a long time. Everybody, thanks for listening to another episode of Fix Your BS, where BS stands for belief systems, business systems, and balance sheets. And we're trying to help you build the life, your dream life, on your terms through the 5 major pillars of life: relationships, business, health, finance, and belief. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will see you on the next one. Make sure you share this episode with someone. That's how we're able to help more people. And that's how we're able to grow and expand and spread a positive message to as many people as possible. I will see you on the next episode of Fix Your BS.